Want to level up your cinematic camera animations? Follow along with my free tutorial where I will provide you with this demo scene and guide you step by step. We'll start by studying references for strong framing. Then, we'll create stunning stills using the Dolly Camera Rig. Next, we'll mark key moments in the music and sync our shots. Finally, we'll add dynamic motion to bring everything to life. By the end of this tutorial, you'll be able to showcase any 3D project, whether it's a character, piece of furniture, vehicle or game asset, in a fresh and modern style. I'm providing this scene for free, so you can follow along. It's a simple, distraction-free setup designed to help you focus on perfecting your shots. The ground is a round plane with a particle system for grass, and the lighting comes from an HDRI from Polyhaven. I originally modeled this car in 2019 while taking an excellent course from CG Masters. My goal was to create something minimal, visually appealing, and lightweight enough to render even on a low-end computer. In this video, I'll focus primarily on my methodology, which can be applied to any object. Feel free to follow along with this scene or use your own. While researching for this video, I came across an amazing resource for 3D scenes, CGI backgrounds. These scenes are fully optimized for realistic, true-to-life results while remaining completely customizable, allowing you to tweak settings to achieve the exact look you want. They even offer a free scene to try out, and I highly recommend checking it out. If you're ready to dive in, skip ahead to this timecode to start working right away. But before we begin, let me share the inspiration behind this video. The book Still Like an Artist by Austin Kleon. The author emphasized that nothing in art comes from nowhere. Every creative work builds on what came up before. When I struggle to showcase my work in a fresh, compelling ways, I return to the core of the book. School yourself through the work of others. Remix and reimagine to discover your own path. So that's what I did. I began by recreating others' compositions, framing, and camera movements. Step by step, I learned the principles behind their success, which shaped my approach and helped make Anim 3D what it is today. With my background in character animation, I find it quite similar to creating strong key poses. Most professional 3D animators use a pose-to-pose workflow, where they define the major storytelling poses first. After setting these key moments, the software can interpolate or tween the frames in between, giving animators a solid structure to refine while still maintaining focus on the story's main beats. Even though you are creating motion, it's very handy to start with a strong, appealing pose and then refine it with compelling motion. In Anim 3D, the focus is on showcasing static objects, which can be posed as flexible as characters. This makes composition the fundamental element of your scenes. Since this video is about inspiration, also called stealing, let's learn from those who are good at framing. Real-world photographers. By studying their approach, we can elevate the visual impact of our work before making any movement. I curate a collection of images on Pinterest and Behance, showcasing visuals with striking composition and framing that inspire me. Feel free to explore the links in the description for your own dose of inspiration. And if you're visiting Behance, I'd greatly appreciate your likes. Let's dive into our practical project, showcasing a Corvette model. After exploring references, I checked how the model was presented in the course trailer, where the creator, who knows the car's design intimately, highlights its standout features. Then I browsed Behance, Pinterest, and Instagram for broader inspiration. And here's a tip: it doesn't have to be the exact same model. Drawing inspiration from other projects is often the best way to find unique angles and presentation ideas. Fun fact: next time you catch yourself endlessly rotating around your 3D project, just tell yourself you're hunting for the perfect shot. I already have a video covering this incredible built-in Blender feature. If you're curious why it's the best method for animating cameras in Blender, I highly recommend watching that first. To highlight a few benefits, it offers full control over framing, camera parameters, and movement. Plus, it lets you store multiple setups within a single project file. We'll be using this technique to create both stunning stills and smooth animations. To make your viewport run smoothly, let's hop into viewport shading and switch to lower number of grass. Next, enable the Dolly Camera Rig in Blender's preferences. Once done, press Shift plus A to add it to your scene. Let's organize the workspace by setting up the camera view on the left and the dope sheet, action editor at the bottom. Remember, the Dolly Camera Rig uses pose mode, like any armature in Blender, allowing you to control the camera movements efficiently. The camera bone allows you to position the camera within your 3D viewport. It's automatically constrained to the aim bone, making it simple to track your target. The aim bone controls where your camera points. Wherever you position this controller, the camera follows. I'd like to always place it above the root controller by snapping it to 3D cursor. The root bone is the parent of the entire rig, allowing you to manipulate the entire camera system from a single control point. In camera rig parameters, let's show it in front. And here's why I put my aim above. Now I can use a root as a pivot point for sexy looking arcs. To reset position, use shortcut Alt-R and Alt-G. Camera offset bone adds a layer of control for small, precise adjustments. Whether you need a subtle dolly or camera roll, the offset bone handles it with just one animated value. It also lets you modify camera rig parameters, like depth of field, composition guides, Passepartout alpha, and focal length. Want to take your skills to the next level? In my newly released course, I'll guide you through everything, from setting up your first keyframe to mastering advanced camera animations. Short on time? No problem. Check out Anim 3D, a collection of pre-made camera movements that instantly elevate your 3D projects. Designed to work seamlessly with vehicles, characters, or any object, these pre-configured animations let you create dynamic videos with zero hassle. Let's begin by establishing a strong foundation, creating solid stills. Based on my research, I've prepared a set of reference images for us to use. First, we'll make some space at the bottom for the video sequencer, then we'll add the references. To keep things organized, let's display them in the upper left corner and label them to avoid confusion. Let's set the frame rate to 30 frames per second and enable auto keying. In the preferences, change the default handle type from auto-clamped to vector. To ensure we're all on the same page, I'll reset the location and rotation of all controllers by pressing Alt plus R and Alt plus G. Next, let's adjust the camera controller. Move it slightly and snap the aim to the cursor. It doesn't need to match the reference exactly. Feel free to make it your own. Once you're happy with the positioning, select all controllers and insert the first keyframe. Name the action Stills. Additionally, insert a keyframe for the focal length. Go to next frame by pressing the right arrow. The first shot will use a 50mm lens, while the rest will be set to 30mm. You can watch me do it first, then try it yourself. Once you're happy with the composition, select all controllers and insert a keyframe. A quick reminder, only move the aim controller along the Z-axis, up and down. If you want to adjust where the camera is pointing, use the root controller instead. Finally, since we want the animation to be loopable, duplicate the first keyframe and move it to the end of the timeline. Remember to insert keyframe for focal length in every frame. My biggest inspirations comes from two unexpected sources, my spinning classes and rock and roll dancing. In spinning, I align my cadence, pedal speed, with the music's beats per minute, which is pushing me to the limits. Similarly, in rock and roll, I'm doing my best to stay in rhythm. Both activities teach me the immense power of syncing visuals to audio. It not only boosts motivation, but also results in dynamic, eye-catching animations. After you've blocked out your shots in Blender, you can delete the reference and add audio track that you want to use. I will be using music from Pixabay called In Slow Motion by Soundbay. If you want the same, just add my rendered video to your timeline. To make things clearer, enable the waveform display. Next, use markers to pinpoint key accents in the music, helping you sync your animation with those beats for a more dynamic result. Duplicate the current action and rename it in Slow Motion Vehicle to match the title of the song in slow motion. Next, we'll align the keyframes with the markers. Start by scaling the keyframes up so they roughly match the positions of the markers. Don't worry if the animation doesn't look perfect yet. We'll refine it soon. Now, manually adjust each keyframe so that it aligns with every second marker, ensuring your cuts are precise. Now, we want to maintain a consistent framing throughout the time intervals defined by the markers. To do this, duplicate the first keyframe and position it at the spot indicated by the first marker in each pair. Once done, you should have something similar like this. Once our framing is synced with the beats, it's time to add motion. Let's duplicate the current action to ensure we can easily revert to it if anything goes wrong. For this shot, we'll start with a dolly zoom, a striking technique that can instantly grab the viewer's attention and keep them watching. I'll use the offset controller to subtly move the camera closer while adjusting the focal length from 50mm at the start to 30mm by the end of the shot. For the next 9 shots, let's add a similar orbiting movement of the root controller along the Z-axis. First, I'll set the preview range using the P shortcut. Then, we'll open the graph editor and enable handles for only the selected keyframes. Select the Z rotation keyframe of the root controller at the end of each interval and raise it using the G and Y shortcuts. Next, pick all the starting keyframes and slightly lower them for a smooth motion. In the next 2 shots, let's add a subtle dolly-in movement. To achieve this, we'll use the camera offset controller along its green Y-axis. Open the graph editor and locate the keyframes for the offset controller. Select the handles at the end of each shot and move them upward, constrained to the Y-axis, to create a smooth dolly-in effect. For the final shot, let's enhance it by adding movement away from the object for a dynamic finish. Remember, the last frame must match the first to maintain a seamless loop. This tutorial focuses on animation, so I won't go deep into rendering. But here are a few helpful tips. Use viewport render. First, before committing to a full render, use viewport render animation to preview your work. It's a quick way to test and fine-tune the animation flow, allowing for faster iterations. Avoid ghosting with motion blur. Hard cuts, where the camera teleports between positions, can cause ghosting artifacts with motion blur. To fix this, adjust the shutter's time interval, keyframes. At the last frame of a shot, set it to end of frame. At the first frame of the next shot, set it to start of frame. Use markers to identify these transitions and quickly navigate keyframes with the up and down arrow keys. Render as an image sequence. Always render your animation as an image sequence instead of a video. This ensures higher quality, gives more flexibility for post-production, and protects your work from potential crashes during rendering. Use proper color management. If you want to take your work to a professional level, render as an XR sequence for complete control over colors. I highly recommend Gleb's course for mastering this. Learn how to properly export XR sequences from Blender and interpret them correctly in DaVinci Resolve. Get to know the basics of color space transform and tone mapping. No more clipped highlights and oversaturated colors. That's a really good starting point for making professional cinematic videos in Blender. For those who want to take it further, check out the extended video on my Patreon. There I dive into techniques for crafting attention-grabbing openings and achieving ultra-smooth speed ramps. There, I'll also take a different approach by returning to still frames, rearranging them, and creating seamless camera transitions between striking compositions. Thank you for watching. Feel free to drop a comment on what you'd like to see next. I'd also love to check out what you created using my tutorial. Send it my way or tag me as a collaborator on Instagram posts.